So to turn then just to the topic of what I want to talk about tonight, Nursery Cross, Collon. So the first thing I wanted to say was that this has probably started as a bit of a personal journey for myself. I noticed a few weeks ago the Irish Genealogical Research Society had a lecture which they entitled something along the lines of genealogy and history being two sides of the one coin. I wasn't at the lecture, but I presume the point being made was that history is really the story of people and places. And for me, this particular research started out as a journey looking at my ancestors, and you'll see later on where that comes in. But it has expanded beyond that and to look more generally at the history of that particular area. So the name Faulkner will appear quite prominently in it, and that's the name of one of my ancestors. So just to say the approach I want to adopt in terms of what I'm saying, I'm going to take it that some people at least here may not even know where Nursery Cross is or know very little about it. So I'll take it from that point of view, with apologies to certain people here who will be very, very familiar about where Nursery Cross is and perhaps know as much, if not more, than I do about the history. To move on then, so start off with where are we? So this is just a little map of the Collon area. So we have Collon village up here, Drogheda down this direction. So this is the Collon to Drogheda road, and this junction here is Nursery Cross. So if you're familiar with travelling from Collon to Drogheda, it's a sharp 90-degree right-hand turn as you're coming from Collon towards Drogheda. If you turn left, it brings you over to Monaster Boyce. And that's just another map, again showing Collon and Drogheda in this direction, and Nursery Cross just here. So this is just a quick photograph. This is coming from Collon, heading towards Drogheda. The turn there on your right that's the cross, and then that's looking from the Monaster Boyce entrance onto the Monaster Boyce Road entrance onto the Nursery Cross. So to start with, to find out first records of Nursery Cross, this is Thomas Wren's map of County Louth, or a portion of it. And if we just zoom in then on that, you'll see here again, this is Collon here, and Drogheda out here, and you'll see the road from Collon to Drogheda. So out we come here. We start from Collon here and we're heading towards Drogheda, but you'll see that there's no right-hand turn. The road largely goes straight all the way out to Drogheda. So that's 1766 and Thomas Wren's map. And then if we move to 1777, Taylor and Skinner's map of County Louth. And again, we have Collon up in the left-hand corner and Drogheda down here. And again, the road largely goes in a straight line out to Drogheda. And if we move to the next slide, I've just highlighted here with this circle, this is the location of what is now Nursery Cross. But as you see, there's no turn there at all. So in that sense, Nursery Cross didn't exist in 1777. Now if we jump forward to the Ordnance Survey map in 1837, again, starting with Collon up here. If you come out from Collon, this here now is Nursery Cross, just here. Now you can see the continuation of the old road, or you can see roughly where it continued there, and that was the old route there out to Drogheda. And this now is Nursery Cross, turning right here. You'll also see there the road to Monaster Boyce. So from that, obviously, we can deduce that Nursery Cross, or the new alignment of that, occurred somewhere between 1777 and 1837. Now we can narrow that down a little bit more than that in a minute. Again, this is the same map of Nursery Cross just here. And as I said, the road out from Collon is here. Now, just while I'm on the subject of road realignments, and just on that particular map, there's quite a few of these road realignments occur around the place, and even in the small area of Collon. So we have one here, which again, people of Collon will be obviously very familiar with. This here, just where I'm pointing here now, is what some people would refer to as the glass house. So it seems quite clear that roadway went straight through there before this realignment here. And if you follow that line onwards, and I've put a mark up here and a question mark, it seems quite possible that would have continued onwards. And if you follow the line of the gardens here at the back here, leading all the way up to the Oriel Road, so the question mark would be, did that road actually continue this way and continue on to the Oriel Road originally? And we know obviously that Collon House was built here sometime in the 1740s, and to my recollection there are drawings or maps showing that at an early stage, and there was no sign of a street immediately in front of, it was now Drogheda Street, in front of Collon House, that would have been land or garden down towards the river. So it's quite likely, I think, that roadway actually continued there and joined with the Oriel Road. There's also another realignment here. Today, this is the Collon to Slane Road, and this would be the turn here for Strina. And as you go up the hill, the road now goes straight on, but previously it went round here, which would be just around behind where the business park is now, on the road up there. So that's just a bit of an aside, really, just to point out some further road realignments that have occurred in the area. So the next thing that I want to show you is an extract of, this is really where my journey on studying Nursery Cross probably began. I came across this manuscript document in the National Library quite a number of years ago, entitled New Nurseries at Collon. And in it says, John McAvoy, proprietor of the new nurseries at Collon near Drogheda, will open them for sale early in autumn, where may be had most sorts of forest trees and flowering shrubs that will bear these climates, particularly the following, with their reduced prices. And it proceeds from there then to give a long list of shrubs and trees that were going to be on offer from the nurseries. I'm not going to read through all of them there, but there's a very large number of different varieties of trees that they were going to provide. It also said that there would be a delivery service at 10 shillings a car to Dublin, being near 30 miles, or 4 pence a mile to any part of the kingdom. I would imagine that kingdom refers to Ireland only, because the Act of Union hadn't occurred at that stage, so I think that would refer to Ireland at the time. And then it ends with an acknowledgement of the assistance given by John Foster. And he says, McAvoy will soon publish a catalogue with the common and Linnaean names of the very large collection of trees and shrubs in the plantation of the Right Honourable John Foster near his nurseries. And as Mr. Foster has generously allowed him stools and grafts from thence, he will soon be enabled to offer to the public the most complete and best assorted collection of every tree and shrub that will bear the open air in this climate. The note, or the cataloguing of that document, gives us a date circa 1785, so that's given us a better idea of when the nursery came into existence. And the question then is, I suppose, I don't know whether the cross came into existence at the same time or not, and maybe we might speculate a little bit about that further later. So this is a portrait of John Foster, Speaker of the Irish House of Commons. He born in 1740, died in 1828. He was Chancellor of Exchequer for Ireland at various dates, 1784 to 1786, 1804 to 6, and 1807 to 11. So, despite the fact that he was a staunch opponent of the Act of Union, he still assumed a position within the government after the Act of Union in the 1800s. And of course he was Speaker of the Irish House of Commons from 1785 up until its dissolution. I'm not really going to dwell on his political career. I'm not really an expert really on that either, but one of the many aspects of his life and achievements was his interest in trees, horticulture, agriculture. He was a member of the Royal Dublin Society, what we now call the RDS, which was founded in 1731 and which had the object of promoting agriculture, horticulture, industry in general in the country. He was also very much involved in the founding of the Botanic Gardens in Glasnevin, which opened to the public in 1800. So he had a huge interest, as many landlords of the time did. It was somewhat fashionable as well, I suppose, to plant your domain or your estate with specimen trees. He was very often writing to correspondents all around the world looking for unusual or rare trees to take back to Ireland. And so as I say, on his own estate, he had he spent vast amounts of money, as did it was actually his father, Anthony Foster, who would have begun that work, and famously, the reports state that Collon was in a state of great disrepair before Anthony Foster, John Foster's father, took up ownership of the estate, and vast amounts of money were spent on drainage and fertilization of land, etc. So he had a huge interest, as I say, in the development of estates and also in trees and plants generally. So it's likely, I suppose, that he was the instigator of the nurseries starting that we're talking about, the nursery at Nursery Cross. That's just a quick photo of Collon House, and also Oriel Temple, which was the summer residence of the Fosters. So just then to talk about these records here. So these are records of the proceedings of the Royal Dublin Society. As I said, the Royal Dublin Society was founded to support and promote industry, agriculture, horticulture, etc. And one of the things that they did and introduced around this time were grants, or if you like, subsidy payments towards the growing of trees and creation of nurseries. And we find in 1783, this is a record of the proceedings from the 15th of May 1783, where it records the subsidies which were being paid out. And in this case, we see it says that it was ordered that a premium of £20 be paid to Mr. John McAvoy of Collon in the county of Louth, farmer, being at the rate of £4 per acre for 5 acres of new nursery ground, formed and full stocked by him with trees and shrubs for sale in the said county between the 1st of August 1782 and the 1st of May 1783. So that, I think, fairly clearly gives us a start date for the nursery itself in 1782. 5 acres of ground, new nursery ground. Just a few days later, the 19th of May 1785, again further records. Just interesting to note that the chairperson of the sitting on that occasion was the said John Foster himself, who was presiding over proceedings. And in this case, we find that there's a further order that premium payments be made to various people. Now, they categorise the payments. You would have 4 shillings per 1,000 of oak, beech, chestnut, walnut, etc. 2 shillings for every 1,000 of fir or pine, and 1 shilling for every 1,000 of ash. So different categories of trees that they gave subsidies for. And so in this case then in 1786 we'll see a list of people who received payments, and the second person on that list there is John McAvoy, the proprietor of the Collon Nursery. And we see on this occasion he was receiving a premium for some 94,000 odd of the 4 shilling trees, the bigger subsidy, some 60 odd thousand of the 2 shilling. So these records continue then for a number of years. We have 1788. Again, you see John McAvoy, 55,000 of the 4 shillings, 125,000 2 shillings, and 12,800 of the 1 shilling trees. So in total, receiving £24, 2 shillings, I think. Again, 1788. The amounts increase each year, pretty much. This occasion, I think, is up to £47 odd in payments. Again, this is payment for trees, the amount of trees. In addition, we see that just on the top there, you also received a premium of £12 for 3 acres of new nursery ground. So he's added another 3 acres onto the 5 that we had earlier mentioned. So apart from getting a subsidy for the number the trees that you planted and sold, you also got a premium if you broke new ground and added to your ground. Again, we move on, 1790. This one actually is not related to, apologies. This is John McAvoy again, and again, this is another acre of ground added in 1790. And again, payments for the production of trees as well. In addition, then in 1791, just to note this one, is John Foster himself received a premium of, I think it's £21. This was for enclosing ground of not less than 10 acres with sufficient fence proof against cattle, and planting it with forest trees, not less than 2,000 plants to each acre in the year 1789. This would have encouraged landlords with their domains to enclose those and plant them. Again, a further payment here to John Foster for enclosing further lands, and more payments for trees to McAvoy and Downey. So Mr. McAvoy had been joined by another partner. And again, as I say, each year the payments are largely increasing. This is 1791, and we're now up to £109. And further payments here. 1794. In this case, the chairperson is Thomas Burr, who was in fact John Foster's brother-in-law. And again, John Foster enclosing a further 10 acres within his own lands, his own estate. So this is just a summary here from a book, 2010, Nurseries of Nurserymen in Ireland in the early 18th, early 21st century, Mary Forrest. And she says that a Parliamentary Act of 1710 stipulated that planting had to be done with nursery-grown trees, not those taken from woodland. Toward the end of the 18th century, the Dublin Society, founded in 1731, now the Royal Dublin Society, began to pay premia of £4 per acre to landowners for tree planting. As we've seen, that's slightly incorrect. It's £4 per acre for particular types of trees. There was different categories, as we saw. They also fostered the development of nurseries by offering premia for new or existing nurseries. Again, we've seen that for the new ground, premia for young trees sold from nurseries, and a fee of £10 to £12 for apprentices on the nurseries. I haven't come across any records for payments for apprentices for the Collon nursery. So in that period from 1741 to 1791, they paid out £987 to various nurserymen in premia. And in the year the Dublin Society paid £4,000 to nurserymen, 8,500 to those who planted trees, and 6,000 to those who planted fringe planting trees, etc. And this is the most interesting part of the summary, I suppose. The nurseries were located in 30 of the 32 counties in Ireland, with nurserymen called Madden in Galway, O'Brien in Kerry, and McAvoy in Meath receiving 2/3 of the money. So I think that's interesting that McAvoy was in the top 3 in the country in terms of the amount of subsidy that he received, and that was directly related to how many trees he was selling. So that gives us a good indication of how, the scale of the operation. This wasn't a small operation, it was one of the biggest in the country at the time. And I've just sort of laid out here a table or a listing of the payments that McAvoy and Downey received in that period from 1783 to 1794. Starting with £20 in 1783, £36 in 1785, 24 in 1786, 36 in 1788, 47 in 1789, 53 in 1790, 129 in 1791, and just £53 in 1793, £84 in 1794, and in total in the period it was £485, 14 shillings. So in today's money, £485 would be worth, and I know the last time I did this talk I asked people to have a guess. The answer is it's about €42,000 approximately. And so it's not an insignificant amount, but it's not an absolutely huge amount either when you consider that it's spread over about a 10-year period. So the average premium per year was about €50, or say £50, and at that time, again, just a little bit of fun here, what would you think £50 would buy you in terms of horses? How many horses do you think £50 might have earned you at the time, or bought you at the time? It's 5. You would have bought 5 horses for £50. I'm not sure of the nature of whether they're probably just your average workhorse for the farm, I suppose. Cows, you would have bought 10 cows for that. And in terms of wages, I think this is interesting. £50 would have paid a skilled tradesman for 1 year. So, that meant that the subsidy that they were getting was certainly going to keep a skilled tradesman in the nursery, if that was needed. And I suppose it possibly indicates maybe as well that labour was a little bit cheaper in those days than it is now. Just again as a quick comparison, the building that we're in right now, Collon Church of Ireland, opened 1815, and the cost of construction of this building at the time was in excess of £6,500. So again, as I say, the subsidies which the nursery received were about £485, £500. John McAvoy was succeeded then by a man called John Patterson sometime in the further on in the 1790s. Haven't really been able to find anything much about John Patterson. John McAvoy himself appears to have been active elsewhere as well, because we came across this letter from John McAvoy Cullen to the Marquis of Abercorn in London in 1791. And the letter goes on somewhat, but it refers to two things that I want to mention. It refers to Baron's Court, which is a house and estate owned by the Marquis of Abercorn, situated near Oma in Tyrone. And McAvoy refers to the fact that I have sent from Collon a great number of cuttings of the right kinds of poplars, which will answer here and the edges of the lake in such places as should be planted. So this is, as I say, 1791. So he obviously had a contractor involvement in terms of planting the estate in Omagh, in Barron's Court, and was using supplies from Collon for that purpose. That's just a drawing of Barron's Court from the 1840s, and that's a picture of Barron's Court today. As I say, it's near Omagh in County Tyrone. In 1818, this is an extract from Corwin's Observations in the State of Ireland, just one of the many travellers who would have travelled around Ireland. They recorded their findings, usually recording findings of agricultural activity, etc. And he says that the nursery, and by this I think he is referring to the nursery at Nursery Cross, the nursery is well arranged and managed. In this seminary I beheld the greatest variety of shrubs, evergreen and deciduous forest trees I have ever seen. Here with great pains have been collected every known species of the oak, several of which have been engrafted with scions from other trees. So it was still flourishing, obviously, at that point, and he was obviously impressed. Come on then to this little advert in the Belfast newsletter in 1829. To be let, a full-stocked nursery garden in a most desirable situation, containing above 8 acres, present measure, full-stocked, and 2 acres of meadow, with a dwelling house, standing within 1.5 miles of Collon in the county of Louth, and within 4.5 miles of Drogheda upon the Derry Mail Coach Road from Dublin. The stock for immediate sale, hitherto kept for private use, is of considerable value, and every encouragement will be given to an approved tenant competent to carry on the business. Application to be made to Mr. Samuel Skelton, Antrim, who can give further particulars, or the place in stock may be viewed by application to the person in charge at Collon B Nursery. So the nursery will come shortly just to some valuation office records. The nursery was let by the Foster estate to whoever was operating it. By this stage in 1829, John Foster had died just the year before, and his son had married the heiress of the Skeffington family in Antrim. So the centre of business, if you like, had moved to Antrim largely at that point. So that's why I think Mr. Skelton in Antrim was in charge of the letting of the nursery at this point. And I'm going to just return then now to the Ordnance Survey map, which, as I say, is 1837, just another few years beyond 1829. And this is a close-up of the Nursery Cross and the nursery itself. So here's the crossroads here, and you'll see here all of these fields here are marked as being planted with trees, and down this way as well. A few things to note there. First of all, there's buildings here, which would be exactly where the current house at Nursery Cross is. There are about 12 different divisions of lands there with the trees. Interestingly here, a name appears here, Swinburne. And I kind of find that a bit odd in the sense of, I don't know why a person's name would be appearing on an ordnance survey map like that, but it is relevant as we'll see in a moment. And as I said, the name nursery also actually appears marked on the map. If I can just point it out here, just across here, it just says nursery as well. So as I said, the nursery name appears. There was 12 divisions of land planted. You can see the location of the house and the name Swinburne. And in 1831, Mary Swinburne married Michael Faulkner. And that's the start of a long association of that Faulkner family then owning and operating the nursery. So if we move forward to 1854 with its valuation, I've highlighted here again the grounds, the lands and area that was recorded as being held by Michael Faulkner from the Mazarine estate. So we have all these nursery grounds down here at the crossroads, some further land here just further back, just at Drumgoole's Cross there, and also actually what I referred to earlier as the glass house, just that area up there was also, and it is also actually marked as being nursery ground at the time. And if we move sort of around the corner from Nursery Cross, there's again the crossroads there. This area down here is also part of the grounds held by Michael Faulkner, and again is marked as being planted with trees. So that's continuing out the Drogheda Road out towards Carrick and Ain. Just again in passing, just to note a little road realignment again here. If we look at the first ordnance survey map in 1837, and this is Nursery Cross here, and you see the road to Monaster Boyce runs here like this. But if you move forward to 1854, there's been a realignment. This is the old road to Monaster Boyce, this one here, but you'll see it's been superseded by this one going up and around this way, which is the current route now, this one here. And this is the old road here. And Monaster Boyce House, I think, is just located in here. This just then is some extracts from the Griffiths valuation showing Michael Faulkner as the occupier of those lands, and they're held from the Viscount Mazarine and Ferrard as the landlord. He also held some land from William Drummond de Lapp, who would be the owner of Monaster Boyce House. Just some land there as well. So it was actually in 3 different townlands. So in total, by this stage, Michael Faulkner had 72 acres held in Collon, Cordugan and Cool 4. Approximately 1/3 of that was nursery land, so something like 20 odd acres. And it probably was kind of very much at its height at this stage in terms of the operation, I would think. This is an extract from the Gardener's Chronicle and Agricultural Gazette in London in 1859. To nurserymen and others, thornquicks for sale, 1.5 million of 1-year-old thornquicks extra fine, 1 million of 1-year-old thornquicks stout and well rooted, very suitable for transplanting. Application to be made to Michael Faulkner, nurseryman, Collon, County Louth, Ireland. NB satisfactory reference required from unknown correspondence. So no tire kickers allowed. As I said earlier, we were talking about delivery to the Kingdom and Ireland, but at this stage, this stage the nursery is being advertised for delivery into the UK or into England. 1861, the same Gazette, Thornquicks and Irish ewes for sale, 250,000 one-year-old Thornquicks extra fine, 500,000 one-year-old of the same, answerable for transplanting. Also 1,000 Irish ewes, 3.5 to 4 feet high, when last transplanted 2 years ago. The above will be disposed of on reasonable terms if a considerable quantity taken. Delivered carriage-free in Liverpool. Applied to Michael Faulkner, nurseryman, Collon, County Louth, Ireland. Then in 1864, just a brief mention then as well of there was a celebration in Collon to mark the 21st birthday of the Viscount Mazarin, and noting the decoration of various premises, it was observed that the splendid illuminations of Mr. Faulkner's residence of the nursery also deserved special notice. In 1869, we have a report of the Dundalk Catholic Young Men's Society to Bettystown coming back via Collon, and the report said that the nursery of Mr. Faulkner, which is one of the most extensive and best kept in Ireland, claimed the particular attention of the party and would repay anyone a visit to that delightful spot. I've never seen roses and flowers in such profusion, and the supervision of the owner is amply rewarded by the luxuriousness and richness of the plants. Here are raised all kinds of shrubs, quicks of all descriptions, fruit trees of all countries. I may say this was the chief attraction of the day. Just stepping back slightly to 1862, and just a sort of a couple of other little newspaper reports that indicate that things don't always work smoothly in business, I suppose. Michael Faulkner was summoned before the Captain Peel, resident magistrate at Collon Petty Sessions, by P. Roach, road contractor. Roach complained that Faulkner had refused him access to Faulkner's field for the purpose of quarrying stone to repair a portion of the road from Collon to Drogheda, for which Roach had been contracted. After hearing several witnesses, the magistrate ordered that Roach should be allowed to quarry the stone in Faulkner's land, it being the nearest and having the best materials. So, I suppose, a bit like having to pay your rates, you had to give up whatever you had on your land for road building if that was required. Another report, this time Michael Faulkner is on the plaintiff's side, suing a man called Martin Burke. This is from 1863, and this is in the High Court in Dublin, and it says that this was an action brought by the plaintiff, the owner of the Collon Nursery, against the defendant, who was the contractor for making the CLAHS and Old Castle Branch Railway, to recover a sum of £325 claimed to be due to the plaintiff for planting with thornquicks the hedges along the line. The defence was that the plaintiff had not as yet completed the work according to his contract. However, when the case was called on, counsel stated to the court that the defendant had agreed to withdraw his defence, to pay down £155 in cases, and give a consent for judgment for £155 more, in all £310, and to pay the full costs of the record, which terms the plaintiff had accepted, and accordingly his lordship ordered the consent to be made. I think pretty much a full capitulation by the defendant ultimately there. Then, as is just to come back to the genealogy side of things, I suppose Michael Faulkner had at least 14 children, Michael Faulkner and Mary Swinburne. Jane Faulkner was one of his daughters, and she married a man called John Marquis, who was from Antrim and had come down here as part of the household of the Viscount. And Kate Faulkner, another daughter, married Nicholas Roe, and that's where my own connections come in. This is just a photo of Jane and of Kate in her later years. And this is the Faulkner grave in Monaster Weiss graveyard. So the headstone records that it was erected by Thomas Faulkner of Collon Nursery in memory of his beloved and affectionate sister Rose McNally, who departed this life the 5th of May 1857, aged 23. And then there's a verse that follows, and I'll just come back to that in a moment. Also his beloved brother Robert Faulkner, who died aged 19, and also 4 of his sisters who died young. So there was quite a heavy rate of attrition in the family, 23, 19, 4 who died young. Here also lies the above Thomas Faulkner, who died in 1868 in the 36th year of his age. Now we'll come to that just in a moment. Also his father Michael, who died in 1875, sister Ellen in 1877, who was only 26, and then his mother Mary, who died in 1882, age 68, and an uncle then, George, as well. And then a further sister, Elizabeth Collins, and we'll mention her later, and her husband, Patrick. I mentioned the verse that's there. The verse is from, it seems to have been taken from a book by Augustus Hare, Epitaphs for Country Churchyards, which was published in 1856. So that would have been just right at the time that headstone was erected. And it comes from a Wesleyan hymn attributed to Charles Wesley. And in the book it notes that many gravestones were containing wording which was unsuitable, and so that this was to promote more suitable wording for gravestones and verses. So I mentioned one of the people mentioned on the gravestone is Thomas Faulkner, who was the eldest son of Michael Faulkner. And there is a report in the Drogheda Argus in the 20th of June 1868, and that's the report, and it reads as follows. With very great regret, we have to record an occurrence which resulted in the death of Mr. Thomas Faulkner, son of the proprietor of the well-known and extensive nursery near Collon. On Saturday last, Mr. Faulkner came into Drogheda, and having contracted his business, went to the stable on the north road, where his horse was, to get him out to return home. Immediately that he entered the stable, the horse kicked him, hitting him in the chest. Mr. Faulkner, who was a man of very strong frame, stood stunned, and the brute again kicked him at him, striking him the second time with full force. Having been removed from the stable, all that could possibly be done for him was done, and late in the afternoon he was conveyed home. He lingered till Monday, when death resulted from the injuries he received. Mr. Faulkner was widely and very generally respected and esteemed. The sad occurrence resulting in his death has been learned with much regret by all who knew him. So that was, as I say, 1868, and probably came as a big blow to the family and to the business in general, because, as I say, I think he was the eldest of the family, and probably the person was groomed probably to take over. Another son had a fortunate escape as well, which was reported in papers. So at the age of 28, George Faulkner embarked in February 1869 on the Blue Jacket at Littleton, New Zealand, bound for London. With him were his wife and 3 children. The Blue Jacket was a 3-masted clipper sailing ship and is described as one of the fastest sailors of the mid-19th century. On her maiden voyage, she crossed the Atlantic from Boston to the Mersey in 12 days, 10 hours. She was brought on the Australian run and maintained a passenger cargo service for the next 15 years. On her fateful final voyage, she had 71 passengers and crew on board. When some distance from the Falkland Islands, she caught fire and had to be abandoned on the 9th of March 1869. 36 survivors in one boat were picked up after being adrift for a week. 3 others in another boat were picked up after 3 weeks. The remaining 32 people perished. Fortunately for George Faulkner and apparently his family, they were among the survivors. So we're in the South Atlantic Ocean in a small boat for a week. Not a comfortable position to be in. That's just an image that I found that refers to the Blue Jacket burning. And this report from the Drogheda Argus in 1869. And it says that Mr. George Faulkner of Collon, County Louth, son of Mr. Michael Faulkner, Collon Nursery, one of the passengers referred to in the above account of the disastrous fate of the Blue Jacket, we are glad to say, arrived safely at Collon on Tuesday last, after encountering the dangers of this disastrous voyage. In passing through Drogheda on Tuesday, he called to this office and supplied the following particulars. And then it's sort of rather technical details which were provided by the commander. They sailed on the 15th of February 1869 from New Zealand with a cargo of colonial produce, gold, 22 passengers and 46 crew. Passed the Cape of Horn on the 5th of March and the Falklands on the 7th of March. Burnt on the 9th of March, abandoned the same day, and the boats in which passengers were embarked picked up by the bark Permont from Hamburg under a Captain Niemeyer, who treated the rescued kindly and landed on the 17th of May at Queenstown. So it took another 2 months to get back to Queenstown in Cork. 2 of the crew and 1 of the passengers died immediately after boarding the Permont from exhaustion. We numbered 37 in the boat. The exact measurement was 28 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 4.5 feet deep. So 37 people in a boat of 28 feet long and 8 feet wide for a week in the South Atlantic, being thrown around the place, no doubt. So they did well to survive. 2 lifeboats took 32 of the crew. Each boat measured 28. It's in pretty much the same dimensions. George was very fortunate, obviously, to escape from there. I haven't actually been able to find out ultimately what happened to him after that. I can't seem to track him beyond that. I mentioned earlier again from the headstone that Michael Faulkner then died in 1875, and I think at this stage, the nursery probably started deteriorating or going downhill from that point, I would have said. Very recently I just came across this little letter. One of my colleagues on the council, Ned McHugh, emailed me a few weeks ago to say that there was a letter on sale on eBay relating to Collon Nursery, so I just managed to purchase this. It's just a little letter dated the 19th of December 1876, addressed to Messrs. Hodgins and Son, gentlemen. The goods you so kindly ordered as per enclosed invoice are forwarded this day, all packed carefully in 1 crate and 4 bundles. directed, as usual, to Clough Station, carriage paid to Dublin. I trust they reach you safely. And can't quite read that, but with many sincere thanks. And then a kind of bit of a postscript. I have a great supply of thorn quicks, hedge thorns and ditch thorns, should you require any. Your obedient servant, Michael Faulkner. But of course we know Michael Faulkner was deceased at this stage, so it's signed Michael Faulkner per Ellen Faulkner, who was his daughter. P.S. I have not many Scotch, which I think it was referring to Scotch pine, I presume, for sale this season. I received your bill. I have drawn it for 3 months. I am much obliged for it and the discount you added. So Michael Faulkner's daughter Ellen was running the nursery at that point. She was named as his executor in his will, but unfortunately Ellen herself died, and we saw that again in the headstone at the age of 26 the following year in 1877. And then we also saw that Mary Faulkner, that's Mary Swinburne, Michael Faulkner's wife, died in 1882. And the remaining member of the family really at that point in the property seems to have been Elizabeth or Eliza Faulkner, who had married Patrick Commons. And in the census in 1901 we see Patrick Commons and Eliza Commons residing at the nursery. So this is also in 1901. This is an advertisement from the Belfast newsletter, and this is advertising a sale of the well-known Collon nurseries. And it sets out that we're favoured with the instructions from the reps of the late Mr. Michael Faulkner to sell by auction at our showroom the interest and goodwill in all that old established property known as the Collon nurseries. The holding contains 24 statute acres or thereabouts and is held under agreement for lease dated the 21st of May 1883 for a term of 31 years from the 1st of May 1882 at the yearly rent of £37. Under the agreement, the tenant is bound to keep at least 6 statute acres under plantation. The balance is all under grass, and the land is at present in prime feeding condition, being well watered by the River Mattock. The property is situated on the borders of the counties of Meath and Louth, about 4.5 miles from Drogheda, etc. There is a substantial 2-storey dwelling house erected on the building, on the holding, with cowsheds, out offices, and other ample accommodation. The portion of the lands at present under plantation is well stocked with conifers and evergreen shrubs. A very lucrative business has always been attached to this nursery, and it is now offered for sale as a going concern. The purchaser will have the benefit of the very considerable sums of money spent by the present tenants in cultivation and permanent improvements. And then it gives the details of the seller's auctioneer and solicitor. So I suppose a few comments on that. Again, it reflects the fact that the nursery is still held under a lease arrangement, still from the Mazarine estate, a 31-year lease at that point. The extent of it seems to have decreased because it refers to 24 acres, and we saw earlier that Michael Faulkner had some 72 acres in his name in 1854, and we also find that there's only 6 acres at this point under plantation, whereas previously, I think in the mid-1850s, we were talking about over 20 acres. So clearly, as I say, the extent of the business had dropped quite a bit at that stage. I'm not sure whether that sale ultimately was successful or not, or who the purchaser was, because the valuation records after that still record Patrick Cummins as the rateable occupier. So I'm not sure whether the sale was actually successful at all. And here we have in 1911 Patrick and Eliza Cummins in situ in the nursery. Elizabeth Cummins died in 1918, and Patrick, her husband, in 1924. I think it'd be fairly clear at that stage that you know the operation of a nursery had largely wound down, maybe not fully, but to a very large extent. For instance, Patrick Cummins is described as farmer. He's not described as a nurseryman or such. And again, these are just the valuation book records in Dublin for changes of ownership, and we see the name of Michael Faulkner being removed and Patrick Cummins being recorded as the rateable occupier. Subsequently then, moving forward much further into the 1960s, Patrick Flanagan is listed as the rateable occupier. And this is just a quick photo today of Nursery Cross where it is today. And this is the house itself. The current owners of the property don't access it from the roadway. They've effectively, I suppose, turned the aspect of it around. You now approach from a side entrance and come in at the rear of the building, so it doesn't. You don't approach it straight from the roadway. So that's really it. I just want to very, very briefly mention at the end, in the vicinity of Nursery Cross, there are obviously a couple of other notable things. We mentioned William Drummond Dunlop, as he subsequently changed his name back to. This is Victoria Drummond Gate, which is just up from Nursery Cross, and the stone here records it as being Victoria Drummond Gate, 1862, and at the rear of it, it states that it was built by Reed and Son for William Drummond Dunlop in the 82nd year of his age. And that's just a quick photo just to show you. I don't know how current that photo is, but that's a view of Master Boyce's house. So that's really everything I want to say. I want to just acknowledge one or two people. In particular, I want to acknowledge Michael Reid, who provided me with a lot of the newspaper references and reports, which I don't think I would have discovered without his help. So thank you very much, Michael, for that. And thank you to John Roundtree and to Seamus as well for helping set up everything here this evening and for allowing us access into the building. So thank you all very much.